my name is Sarah Davison. I work for Scripture Union, and our heart at Scripture Union is for those that don't yet know him. So we did some research that suggested 95% of children and young people have no regular contact with church. So it's those children and young people that we kind of position ourselves towards. We want to equip, support, resource the church to connect with that 95%. And over the past 2 years, I've been doing a project exploring what hybrid models of mission could look like. Sounds a bit convoluted, doesn't it? But essentially what we're saying is, what does it look like to kind of create a synergy between the online and digital spaces that we know our children and young people are in, and the face-to-face context that we often are connecting with them in? Predominantly as the church, it's those face-to-face spaces where our mission and our ministry happens. But what could it look like to bring in the online and the digital spaces to just add extra weight and opportunities for children and young people to connect, explore, respond and grow? That's kind of our kind of framework. We look at, it follows on really well actually from what Andy was saying. Actually, that connection point is really important and really valuable. Like, how do we build genuine relationship with young people? Our heart and our approach is for long-term relational mission. Right? We want to create opportunities for children and young people to explore the Bible, respond to Jesus and grow in faith. So over the past few years, we've been doing a number of things to look at this. And the why is, well, I think we can probably all understand the why, right? But about 80% of 8 to 11-year-olds and 95% of 12 to 15-year-olds own a smartphone. They're in online and digital spaces. A number of those, whether that's social media, whether that's gaming, there's lots of different places. But what does it look like for us to go to where children and young people are? But how can we do that in a way that's safe? How can we do that in a way that's relevant? How can we do that in a way that's feasible? Like, I was a schools worker for a long time before I worked for SU, and I had a volunteer called Ken, who was 82, and he'd come into school with me, and the kids and young people loved it when Ken came in. He was kind of like the grandfather figure. He would share his experience of faith, but I can't imagine Ken being on Twitch, like streaming, gaming, that kind of a thing, right? So we're not saying that this needs to look like the extremes, but what does it look like for us to begin to ask these questions? And a key part for me of exploring this was that we really wanted to understand, well, what do children and young people think about this? Like, we don't want to assume that we know what they want or what they need. Like, let's actually talk to them and let's ask them. So we partnered with Liverpool Hope University, and we conducted some research into this whole idea of hybrid spaces and hybrid mission. We talked to children and young people that were part of the 95%, so those that had no church background. And we did talk to a small cohort from those within churches as well to hear what their thoughts were on this. And we also spoke to youth and children's workers. And some of the key things that came out of this research was that, firstly, again, echoing what we've already heard, that they were really open to talking about faith. They were really excited to share their thoughts and their ideas and their questions, even if they had absolutely zero faith background or faith experience. They were happy and comfortable and confident to have these conversations. Secondly, we noted in the research that actually predominantly the children and young people we spoke to, their preference was for a hybrid approach when it came to exploring faith and spirituality. They wanted to do that in an online space as well as the face-to-face. And they really noted actually a real difference in what those spaces facilitated. So they talked about the online being a space where they could collect information, they could find out facts and figures and kind of knowledge about faith, about Christianity, but they could do it in a way that was on their terms, like it was accessible to them. They could decide what questions they asked. They could figure out kind of the nuances that they wanted to know. But they talked about how if they wanted to understand the experiential elements of faith, they wanted to talk to a real person. They wanted somebody that they knew and that they trusted. And they wanted to do that in a face-to-face context. And that person that they knew and trusted, some of them talked about family, some talked about friends, but some talked about a lady that comes in and does assemblies every week in their school. Some talked about somebody in their local community that puts on events that they kind of had built a relationship with. And I found this really encouraging because I think for me, what it said was, I think as the church, we generally facilitate and hold these face-to-face and in-person spaces really well. And our children and young people were saying, we value that and we want that. But what they were also saying is, we also want the both and. We want the online spaces too. And actually, we're not seeing many spaces that we can do that. We don't really know many places that we can go to that's relevant for us, that we can find out more about faith. And also what we also kind of talked to, as I said, a lot of youth workers and children's workers and volunteers. And what we saw was there was actually a real significant difference in their opinions on how children and young people were being influenced and the opinions of our children and young people. In every single category, we asked things about are you impacted or influenced by social media? How do friends and family impact and influence you? And with a number of different things, but on every single one, the opinions of our youth and children's workers were the absolute opposite to those of our children and young people. And for me, this kind of posed that question of, do we really know the children and young people in front of us? And are we really investing that time to really understand what their needs are and where they're at and what their wants are? Or are we sometimes assuming that we know and then doing that? So I found the research, there was loads, it was really rich, and there was loads of things that kind of came out of it. But loads of encouraging things, but also the challenges too, of what might this look like for us going forward. And at Scripture Union, we really want to partner and equip and journey with churches as they maybe explore what this could look like for them. I'm going to be around during the kind of workshop time just to have some conversational spaces to figure out and to journey with you if you want to figure out, well, what might this look like for me? You know, we're looking at doing some resources around this, some training around this. And again, like I said before, it's not about it having to look like one particular expression of fully jumping into the online world and we can only do everything online. It's not that. But how could we create this opportunity where we're aware of and offering the children and young people in front of us the both and? And are we really understanding what their needs are and how are we journeying with them and building relationship with them as they explore more about what faith might mean and could mean to them?